The wind came down from the mountains like a living thing that night, tearing at the pine roof of Eli Mercer's cabin with icy fury. Snow drove hard against the logs, rattling the shutters, while the valley howled like a pack of wolves let loose. Inside, Eli sat close to the iron stove, his hands steady as he stitched torn leather by firelight. 35 winters in Wyoming territory had taught him storms could not be reasoned with. They only had to be endured. The first knock at the door was so faint he thought at a branch striking in the gale. The second made him set down his work. No one traveled in weather like this unless death was at their heels. He lifted his Winchester from its pegs, checked the chamber, and moved to the door. "Who's there?" he called above the roar. A woman's voice answered, thin and afraid. When he pulled open the door, the storm tried to rip it from his hands. On the threshold stood a figure the blizzard had nearly buried. Her blue wool dress was frozen, stiff. Ice clung to her auburn hair. One hand clutched a carpet bag as if it held her last hope. Eli didn't waste words. He pulled her inside, slammed the door, and fought the latch back into place. She shook so hard her teeth clattered, lips the color of death. He turned his back, grabbed a spare flannel from the peg, and held it out. "Change now. Wet clothes will kill you faster than a bullet." He busied himself with the stove, feeding it until flames leapt high. When he finally turned, she sat wrapped in his shirt and a wool blanket, her soaked dress in a heap by the chair. Her hands trembled so badly she could barely hold the tin cup of coffee he poured, yet she forced it to her lips. Slowly the blue faded from her face. He ladled her a bowl of bean soup from the pot, kept warm at the back of the stove. She ate like someone who had forgotten what food was, steady and silent until the bowl was empty. "Why are you here?" he asked at last. Her green eyes lifted to his, shadowed but steady. "Owen Blackledge brought me from Boston to be his wife. At the crossroads, he changed his mind, said I wasn't fit for ranch life, gave me fare back east and left me there." Eli's jaw tightened. He knew Blackledge well, owned the biggest spread in the valley, heavy-handed with cattle and men alike. "And you walked here from the station." In this, she nodded. "No coach till the storm clears. No money for a hotel, food, or a roof. Not both." She did not cry. She did not beg. She simply laid the facts bare like reading from a ledger. Eli respected that mail-order bride. Then, quote, he said, her mouth pressed tight, I'm just a woman sold once and found unworthy." The storm battered the cabin walls. Eli checked the shutters, then came back to her. "This is my place. You're welcome here until the weather breaks. My name is Margaret Doyle." "Maggie Eli Mercer," he said. "We're not formal here. You'll take the bed. I'll sleep by the stove." "I couldn't." "You will. I've slept on worse ground." "Plenty." She rose, still wrapped in his blanket, back straight despite her shaking. "Thank you, Mr. Mercer." "Eli," he corrected. He gave her privacy to settle while he banked the fire and barred the door. When he finally stretched out in his buffalo robe by the stove, he could hear her breathing from the bed, uneven but steadying. The storm clawed at the roof, but the cabin held. He'd built it strong, meant to outlast winters and wolves alike. Near dawn, her voice floated soft through the dark. "Why didn't you ask more questions about why he really sent me away?" Eli kept his eyes on the faint glow of coals. "Blackledge never does anything without profit in mind. If he abandoned you, there's more to the story than you being unsuitable." Silence stretched between them, filled with the wind's howl. Then barely audible, "You think I'm pretty? I think you're alive." Eli answered. In a storm like this, that's what matters. She made a sound between laughter and tears. He didn't look. Some things a person had to do alone, even when they weren't. When morning came, snow lay heavy on the world. Eli stoked the fire and baked biscuits while she rose from his bed, wrapped in his mother's quilt. She came to the table barefoot, her hair a tumble of chestnut and copper. They ate biscuits and gravy in silence, but something had shifted. I can work, Maggie said when she began to wash the dishes, cook, mend, clean. I won't take charity. Everybody works here, Eli said. That's not charity. That's just living. He sat at the table with his needle and leather, watching the straight line of her spine, the careful way she handled his few dishes, the determination in her every move. Whatever Owen Blackledge had thrown away, it wasn't weakness. Through the frost-etched window, snow still fell, covering the valley in white. For the moment it felt as though the world had narrowed to just the two of them, cut off from everything else. And for the first time in years, Eli Mercer wondered if his quiet solitude was truly what he wanted, or if this woman, abandoned on his doorstep in the teeth of a storm, was about to change the course of his life forever. The storm did not end quickly. For 3 days, the cabin was sealed in white silence. Eli rose at dawn each morning, broke the ice on the water bucket, and tended the cattle in the barn. Maggie took to the kitchen, heating oats, baking biscuits, and stitching his worn shirts with neat, invisible seams. They moved around each other like two people who had always known the steps, their silence filled with the small sounds of shared work. On the 4th morning, the sky cleared to a cold, sharp blue. Maggie laid a stack of letters on the pine table, her hands steady, though her voice trembled. These are from Owen. 2 months of promises, a home, respect, partnership. Then this, she placed the final paper before him, the one he had handed her at the station. The words were short, blunt. Agreement terminated. Unsuitable for ranch life. Eli read the letters in silence, the heavy script, the honeyed words, the abrupt rejection. He set them down with care. Blackledge doesn't spend money on romance. Those letters were investment. Train fare, clothes, 2 months of writing, then he tosses it all. There's something behind this. You think I was just paperwork? I think Owen wanted a wife for business, not for love. Then the deal changed. Her jaw tightened. I sold my mother's ring for dresses he told me to buy. I gave away everything I couldn't carry, and he left me like I was nothing. Eli's voice was quiet but firm. You're not nothing. You're not property. You're a woman who deserves choices. That evening, while she read aloud from his worn copy of Ivanhoe by lamplight, Eli sharpened his knife and whittled a spoon from pine. When he handed it to her, she traced its smooth lines with her fingers. Different from my mother's, she said softly, pulling a carved heirloom from her bag, but just as beautiful. The next day they walked to the barn together. One of the cows was heavy with calf. Maggie held the lantern as Eli checked her flanks. Not today, he said, but soon Maggie's cheeks glowed in the light. She's beautiful. Quota, she's profitable, he answered, then caught her teasing look. All right, she's beautiful and profitable. Her laughter rang bright in the hay-scented air, the first true laugh he had heard from her. It settled deep into his chest, warming places long frozen. That night the temperature dropped so low the cabin groaned. Despite the roaring stove, cold seeped through the walls. Eli heard Maggie's teeth chattering under the quilt. Finally he rose, dragging his buffalo robe to the bed. We'll share, he said. Body's the only thing that works tonight. She hesitated, then nodded. He sat against the headboard, pulled the robe over them both. She leaned into him, small and trembling, until her shaking eased. Better? He asked. Yes. Her voice was barely a whisper. By dawn, she had dozed against his shoulder, breath soft and even. Eli stared at the pale light creeping across the floor, knowing something had shifted between them. The storm broke 2 days later, and with it came riders. Eli saw them from the barn, Owen Black Ledge at the front, Sheriff Amos Hale at his side, 2 hired men trailing. Trouble had found them. Owen reined in at the porch, his voice carrying Eli. Heard you've been harboring stolen property. Quote. Eli leaned against the doorframe, rifle resting nearby. Nothing stolen here but the piece you're disturbing. Miss Doyle is my bride, Owen snapped. Bought and paid for. I've got receipts. The cabin door opened. Maggie stepped out, straight and steady in her blue wool dress. Her voice was clear. I am not property. You abandoned me in a blizzard. You signed this. She handed the sheriff the termination paper. Sheriff Hale read it slow, lips moving. At last he said, Seems clear enough, Owen. You released her yourself. That paper's not legal, Owen growled. She tricked me. I never spoke a threat, Maggie answered. You said I was too refined for ranch life, that I wasn't what you wanted. Eli stepped forward, calm but hard. As iron storms over, she stays here by her choice. That's the end of it. Owen's face wrined. A woman living with a man unmarried. What will folks say? They'll say you threw her away first, Eli replied. Sheriff Hale asked Maggie directly. Are you here of your own free will? I am anyone forcing you? No one. Eli Mercer has been nothing but proper and protective. The standoff stretched taut as wire. Owen's hand hovered near his gun belt. Eli's fingers brushed his rifle. Tension crackled like summer lightning. Finally, the sheriff broke it. This is civil, not criminal. Miss Doyle's free to stay where she chooses. Owen, you wrote that paper. Can't unwrite it now. Owen glared at them both, then yanked his reins. This isn't over. He spurred his horse, snow flying in his wake. His hired men followed, but the younger one, Tommy Bright, touched his hat respectfully to Maggie before leaving. Sheriff Hale lingered. He won't let this go, he warned. Be careful, both of you. After he rode off, Maggie's hands shook. He'll ruin us, she whispered. Eli poured her a cup of coffee, steady as stone. Let him try. You're safe here. But as the wind picked up again and rattled the shutters, both of them knew the storm outside was nothing compared to the one Owen Black Ledge was about to bring down on their heads. Wait, before we move on, what do you think about the story so far? Drop your thoughts in the comments. I'm really curious to know. Owen Black was not a man who forgot humiliation, and Maggie's defiance on Eli's porch had burned him like fire. Days after the confrontation, Eli found a dead chicken on his doorstep. Throat slit clean, a warning. Then the north fence was cut. Then gossip spread through Sweetwater that Eli had stolen Owen's bride and was living in sin. Maggie saw how neighbors turned their backs in town, how whispers followed her steps. One morning she squared her shoulders and said, Teach me to shoot. Eli studied her face, pale but steady, then handed her the Winchester. She learned fast, determined to stand her ground. By evening, she could hit a tin can at 20 paces, and when she set the rifle down, her hands no longer shook. The talk in town grew louder. Sheriff Hale warned that Owen was leaning on Judge Harper, threatening charges. Reverend Cole came to the cabin with a suggestion. Marry, make it proper, stop the talk. But Maggie lifted her chin. I will not marry just to silence Owen Blackledge. If Eli and I marry, it will be our choice, not his victory. So on Sunday, Maggie stood before the church congregation and told the truth. She read Owen's letters aloud, laid bare the termination paper, revealed his lies about her family. She spoke with such calm certainty that even the hardest skeptics wavered. Women who had once turned cold shoulders began pressing her hand. Men who respected Eli for years stood with him openly. Owen stormed out red-faced, but the tide had shifted. When the gossip failed, Owen struck harder. On Eli and Maggie's wedding day, just as vows were spoken beneath the cottonwood tree, smoke rose from Eli's hay barn. The whole valley rushed to fight the fire. Maggie tore her dress digging a fire break, blistered her hands on a shovel, but she did not stop. The barn was lost, but the cabin stood. Sheriff Hale caught one of Owen's men fleeing with a torch, but Owen denied it all. That night, Maggie sat by the ruined barn, her hands bandaged. This happened because of me, she whispered. This happened because of Owen. Eli said, but we'll rebuild. Together, rebuild they did. The community, tired of Owen's schemes, rallied around the Mercers. Neighbors donated hay, tools, and labor. Old grudges softened. Bonds were forged in the fire's ashes. For the first time, Eli realized he was no longer a solitary man, but part of something larger. Years passed. Maggie became the valley's teacher, guiding daughters who once would have been dismissed as unworthy of learning. She birthed children by lamp and by creekside, helped neighbors with her calm voice and steady hands. Eli carved toys, mended fences, raised cattle with a quiet pride. Their children grew with laughter in their voices and dirt under their fingernails. Their lives rooted deep in the land Owen once tried to claim. But Owen returned one last time. Old, now sickly, leaning on a cane, he arrived in a carriage with a lawyer and an offer. A donation for the school, books and supplies enough for years. A man ought to leave something behind worth remembering. He rasped, I left nothing but ashes. Let me do this much. Maggie searched his face and found regret where arrogance once lived. Forgiveness is not mine to give, she said, but the children will take your gift. They deserve more than the man you were. He nodded, voice rough. Mercer, you were right. Every move I made to break this place only made it stronger. Then he left, dust trailing behind him like the last remnants of a life wasted. That night, Eli and Maggie stood on their porch, their children asleep inside. The cottonwood swayed in the wind. The creek sang on as it always had. Maggie leaned her head on his shoulder. Do you ever wonder what would have happened if I hadn't knocked on your door that night? No, Eli said, his arm tightening around her. This is what happened. You, me, them. That's all that matters. Quote. She smiled, eyes soft in the lamplight. No regrets. Not one, except maybe wishing you'd come sooner. She laughed low and warm and kissed him. In that moment, with stars wheeling above and the cabins strong around them, they knew they had built a life richer than land, stronger than gossip, deeper than winter storms, a life chosen day after day, season after season. The blizzard had brought Maggie Doyle to Eli Mercer's door, but love, work, and faith had kept her there. And from that storm had risen a family, a community, and a story no fire or rumor could ever destroy.